tragedy for an Arlington firefighter's family while on vacation in Mexico.
The popular strip of beachfront resorts in Cancun was supposed to be a celebration site for Elijah and Jamie Snow's 10th wedding anniversary. But on the first night the couple arrived, the father of two disappeared.
35-year-old Texas firefighter Elijah Snow was found dead, his body discovered wedged inside this tiny window.
Police here in Mexico say it was an accident and there were no signs of violence at the scene. Snow's family disagrees, suspecting foul play and a cover-up.
12 p.m. July 18th. Elijah Snow and his wife Jamie check in at the $400 a night Royalton Chic Suites, Sunset Falls. They have dinner at the resort's Asian-themed restaurant. 9:30 p.m. They go to the bar for drinks. Jamie returns to their room, but Elijah stays at the bar for a nightcap.
His wife says she woke up at 4 a.m. to see her husband had not returned to the room after a trip to the bar. She started searching and around 8:30 in the morning was told her husband had been found dead.
Information obtained by the family in Mexico, including photos, they said suggest he had been trying to escape from wherever he was found and had also been beaten.
The cause of death was ruled mechanical asphyxia due to thoracic abdominal compression, meaning he was asphyxiated in the window.
I just want to make people aware that it's not safe in Cancun. It's a very dangerous place.
Today we're coming to you from Dallas, Texas, where Elijah's family members say they are left with more questions than answers about what happened to this beloved father and husband. I have to say I'm sorry to meet you. I really am. It's a terrible, terrible circumstance, and I am so sorry for your loss. I want to shed a really bright light on this, and I want to honor your husband. How do you describe him? Who was Elijah?
Elijah was a hero in every sense of the word.
He's a fireman, right?
Yes.
And is it Arlington
Yes.
Fire Department?
Mm-hmm.
Which, for people who don't know, is a huge suburb here in Dallas. How long had he been with the department there?
8 years.
So he was an experienced fireman.
He was.
He had to be in phenomenal shape.
He did CrossFit at least 5 times a week. He was very passionate about working out. He probably didn't have an ounce of fat on his body. And so being a firefighter was his dream. He had just promoted to his dream job right before we left for Mexico to celebrate our 10-year anniversary. We usually go to Mexico once a year around our anniversary. We've always just stayed at the resorts with the intention of not ever leaving a resort because we felt safe.
On July 18th, you and your husband get up early and head down there, right?
We had to wake up at about 2 o'clock in the morning to start our travels.
Where were you staying this time?
We were staying at the Royalton Chic.
That's a beautiful resort,
It's
right?
very beautiful. Mm-hmm.
And it's an all-inclusive, kind of a city within a city.
We planned on just staying at the resort, relaxing and enjoying our time.
So that day you spend on the property there and the facilities there. And then that evening you go to dinner at an Asian restaurant on the property there. And then afterwards, there was a club there, bar there. You went in to have a drink.
So we went to the Martini Bar, which was by the club area. And it was a little loud for us. And so then we went to the lobby and we had a drink there instead. And a little after 9:30, maybe closer to 10, I was tired because we had been up all day. I told him, I said, I'm kind of tired. I kind of want to go up to bed. And he said, well, I kind of want to have another drink. And I said, okay, well, have another drink and I'll see you in a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and go to bed. And so I went up to the room and went to bed, and he stayed down and had another drink. And this wasn't something that was uncommon for us because he's used to being on a firefighter schedule. And so waking up in the middle of the night and adjusting to time changes and things of that nature came very easily to him, whereas for me, if I'm tired, I have to go to bed.
You wake up about 4 a.m. and he's not there.
Right.
What did you think when you reached out and he wasn't there?
Initially, I didn't panic. We had made a few friends at the pool earlier in the day, and I thought, well, maybe he hung out with them and fell asleep on their couch or something. And so I started to walk around the resort just to see if I saw him anywhere. And then at 5 o'clock, I notified the hotel that my husband hadn't returned to the room and I couldn't find him. And they said that they would keep an eye out on the resort and they would notify security and notify the security of the other hotels. And so from 5 o'clock on, I continued to search. I walked every single floor of the hotel, and then I walked the beach as well just to see if maybe he was sitting in a chair, maybe he was by the pool.
Were you calling his phone?
So he had left his phone in the car.
Okay,
And so
no phone.
So he didn't have his phone because I have a GPS locator on his phone, so I would have been able to easily find him, but we only have my phone at the time.
In all the trips you had been on before, had he ever left the property and gone into town or to another hotel?
No, never.
With or without you?
Never. Because I had been curious about going on excursions in the past, and he was always the one, we're paying to stay at a nice hotel, I'd rather stay at the nice hotel and feel safe. He was very cautious.
At 8:30, hotel security has searched the grounds and you've now called the police.
Correct. At 8:30 is when we called the police. At 5 o'clock is when I started to ask them to call the police.
Okay, and at 10:30, you meet with the authorities at the police station.
Correct.
And at this point, you don't have any information about what's happened or what's gone on. And then at 11:30, you're told what?
Well, at 11:30, I was shown a picture of his driver's license. And it was while I was giving my statement to the authorities. And I immediately had concerns because we didn't give our driver's license for anything. They scanned our passports, but there was no reason for anyone to have a picture of his driver's license.
Who showed you the driver's license picture?
One of the police officers.
And do you know how they got it?
They didn't tell me how they got it, and they really didn't give me much detail at all. And so they continued with questioning me for a bit, and then after they were done, the person they sent me to the police station with from the hotel told me that my husband was found dead in a window.
Jamie Snow says that when she first saw her husband's body at a Mexican funeral home, she suspected right away that her husband's death was no accident. Showing incredible strength, she was able to photograph the severe bruising she noticed on her husband's body. Although these images are extremely graphic and difficult to look at, she says she felt safe sharing them with us in order to support her belief that something sinister happened to her husband. Okay, so we now know that his body was found at 7 o'clock that morning.
Correct.
At the Sunset Resort, which was the hotel next door. So they're telling you this 4.5 hours later. So when you walked into that police station, they knew that he had been discovered and his body was in this window. Take me through the moment that it hit you that Elijah was dead.
So at the police station, I was still just in disbelief. I wanted to think it was somebody else because all I had seen at that point was just a picture of his driver's license. So I was hopeful that maybe somebody just took his wallet, maybe it was somebody else. And so it didn't really hit me until they took me back to the hotel, and I was in the hotel room by myself waiting to go and identify his body later. They took me to the hospital around 3 o'clock to go and identify his body. And I was not allowed to see his physical body. They only showed me a picture of his face initially on a computer screen. For them to even show me the picture of his face, I had to pay $100. And then I had to pay an additional $100 to see every other ID picture.
Why did you have to pay?
Because they refused to show them to me. And so I believe I had to pay $600 overall just to see the pictures to identify his body.
Were these bribes?
Correct.
They were charging you bribes to see pictures of your dead husband's body?
Correct. Yes, they would not let me see a single picture without money. And then I had asked to take a picture so that I could share it with his family so that they could see.
So they weren't giving you these pictures, they were just letting you see them?
Yes, I had to pay.
You just got to look.
Oh yeah, no, they did let me take one picture, and it was the initial picture that they showed me, but I also had to pay for that as well.
They charged you additional to actually have a picture?
Correct.
So $100 to look at it, $100 to have a copy of it. Is that the moment that it hit you, this is real? Elijah isn't going home with me.
Yes.
He is dead.
Yes. The second that I saw the first picture, I knew it was him, but I had to see every single picture, and it was just unreal.
And you're down there alone?
Yes.
Jamie, I'm so sorry.
It was awful. I was begging, I was crying, I was begging them to just let me see his body because I was still in disbelief. I mean, we're young, we're 35. I never in a million years imagined this would ever happen. And so I just kept begging, please let me go see him.
And why would they not allow that? Why did they say no?
They said because it wasn't a death of natural causes. The police, their first thing that they said to me was that his cause of death would be murder without suspect. On his death certificate, that is not what his cause of death is listed as.
What I read on that was that it was positional asphyxia, essentially, that his weight was so on his chest
Correct.
that he couldn't breathe and that he couldn't move from there, and so that's why he died.
And I do have two pictures that I would like to show you that kind of disclaim that.
You were able to get these pictures when the body had been released to the funeral home?
Correct.
Did you have to actually manipulate the body yourself to get those pictures?
Yes. It's the worst thing I've ever done in my entire life.
What was that like, Jamie?
It was like an out-of-body experience. I have no idea how I got through it, but I felt like I owed it to Elijah and that I had to do it for him, because by that point I had realized that I can't trust that anybody else is going to do this.
Who was helping you?
My father-in-law. These pictures were all taken after his body had already been cleaned up and washed twice, and so I think that I just disconnected myself emotionally and knew that I had to do it.
Did you talk to him while you were doing it?
Yes.
What did you say to him?
I asked him what happened. I told him I was sorry. And just every time that we had to move him or anything, we just kept apologizing.
I've been studying these pictures, and this looks to me like somebody that was severely beaten.
The season premiere of Dr. Phil continues. Viewer discretion advised.
The family of a Texas firefighter who mysteriously died while celebrating his 10th anniversary in Cancun wants answers.
His body does have signs of violence.
We asked pathologist Dr. Judy Melanik to examine the photos.
If the chest and abdominal compression from the window doesn't match up with the bruises on the legs or the injury to the head, then we need another explanation for those injuries.
I had to physically touch his corpse and take all of these pictures myself.
At the funeral home?
Yes. The picture here is his forehead, where they said there was no bruising or anything on his forehead.
Now, above his left, is that just a bruise or is there an indentation there?
So from this side, it looks like a cylinder type indentation.
You took more pictures.
So this is his back, where they also said there was no bruising on him. They said his only bruising was in his abdomen. And you can see at least 3 or 4 circular looking bruises there. And another one of those gashes closer to the tattoo on the left-hand side.
Right, and on the right shoulder blade as well.
Correct. And you can also see a little bit of bruising on his neck, and that continued to go up into his head. Right. And to me, those almost look like knee marks of holding someone down with your knees. This one, you can't fully see it, but there is a large bruise on the inside of his thigh, and he had one on each thigh, to me resemble shoe prints.
Right. I see exactly what you mean.
And being stuck in a window or dying accidentally in a window, I don't understand how there would be bruising on the inside of your legs.
Okay, now this window that we're talking about.
So this is what they are referring to as a window, which I would really refer to more as a hole in the wall.
This hole in the wall is how wide?
They did measure it, but I would say maybe from my fingertip to my elbow.
So maybe 14 inches?
Maybe.
A firefighter doesn't do this.
Right, and my biggest issue with this is if they're saying that he was trying to climb out, the largest part of his body was out and he could touch the ground.
Your husband is an 8-year firefighter. He goes in and out of windows. He knows what you can do and what you can't do. Their theory is that he was inside this building and trying to come out?
Yes.
And that he got his arms and shoulders outside that window and then couldn't go any further.
Correct.
And he had his hands on the ground outside.
Correct.
Where he could walk himself out.
Another thing about those pictures is that you can see the wooden arch piece that's there.
Right.
So that wooden arch piece was originally covering the window and was removed with what looks like a crowbar. And it was in a location that he would have never known there was a window behind that. He would have never had a crowbar to pull the wood off of the window.
I think one of their theories was that he tried to sneak in to go to the bathroom.
That was a theory.
He finds this plywood nailed to a wall and thinks, I'll go through this piece of plywood to go to the bathroom.
There was a restroom next door that was open. But if my husband had to go to the restroom, honestly, he would have just gone outside.
I've been studying these pictures, and I'm not a pathologist, but these bruises that you're showing on his back, on the inside of his thighs, on the outside of his thighs, on his stomach, this looks to me like somebody that was severely beaten.
Yes, that's exactly what I conclude from what I've seen. And another thing that I want to note is that how he was found hanging in the window, had he died in that manner, his blood would have pooled in his feet.
Right.
And not in his abdomen.
I mean, why would he be in this position to begin with unless maybe he was attempting to escape or something and they found him and started accosting him at that point? And pulling him back and hitting him or whatever. I mean, who knows?
My interpretation of the pictures is that he was beaten and then they tried to shove him in. And then I believe maybe he possibly was still fighting, trying to stay alive. And it looks like they grabbed the dark dirt from in front of the window and suffocated him because his entire nose, his mouth, his face was just covered in that black dirt, so it just doesn't make sense.
What do you think happened?
We now return to the firefighter's wife who claims her husband's death was not an accident. Viewer discretion advised.
What do you think happened?
I think that he went for a walk on the beach, possibly, and I think that maybe he was surprised by, I believe, more than one person. And I think that he probably tried to run. I think that he was hit from behind first, and then I think that he was held down and his abdomen area, where I think that these look like shoe marks on his thighs. I think that he was either stomped to death or beaten with some sort of cylinder tool like what it showed on his head. And that's just my speculation, of course. But I think that after that, they tried to shove him in the window and leave him there.
Well, one thing we know about these resorts is they have cameras everywhere. Did you get a look at any cameras?
I repeatedly asked to see surveillance footage. I was told there was no surveillance footage. And then I took pictures of all of the cameras that were within the resort and that were around the resort next door. And then I put in writing with the consulate that I would like to see surveillance footage for those specific cameras. But no, I have not seen any surveillance footage.
So the police, their basic position now is that there seems that this could have been an accident and that there doesn't seem to be any signs of violence, just a freak accident.
That's their claim. But I believe from the photos that we have and the evidence that we've seen, it's clear that there's no accident. And I believe that I shared a picture of where the location was. I went in daylight with my mom the next day just to see if we could find it. And in daylight, we weren't able to find it.
Yeah, this is behind like a stage door to a performing area, not open to the public.
Correct.
There's nowhere he would have any reason to go.
No.
Did he have cash or valuables on him?
He had about $100. That was not on him. His wedding ring, it wasn't a valuable wedding ring. It was a silicone wedding ring that he had on. It's on him in the crime scene photos, but it was never returned to me. He did have some gift cards that had money on them and his credit cards. Those were all returned, but pictures of his driver's license and his credit cards were shared on the media with his driver's license number, our home address. So I was fearful for my life at that point.
You think that there is misdirection and a cover-up going on here. Why do you think they're trying to cover this up? We reached out to the police handling Elijah's case in Quintana Roo, Mexico, in connection with Jamie's allegations multiple times. We also attempted to contact the Royalton Chic Suites Cancun Resort and Spa, where Jamie and Elijah were staying, and have not received a statement at this time. We did hear from Sunset World Resorts, the company that owns the Sunset Royal Beach Resort where Elijah Snow's body was found. They provided this statement from General Manager David Barcenas, and he said, quote, "We can confirm a guest of our neighboring resort was found deceased on the Sunset Royal property the morning of July 19th. We are cooperating fully with the investigating authorities who have ruled the death an accident with no indications of foul play. This was a tragic, isolated incident, and our thoughts and prayers are with the family." What do you think happened to your son-in-law?
We think he was kidnapped and beaten and murdered, and that he fought and they killed him.
There were so many different bruises and wounds and lacerations in so many different parts of the body. That's not from trying to get out a window, which would make no sense. Why would he be in that window?
He wouldn't.
There's no way this was an accident.
You know, if a friend of his is here, and I want to add him to the conversation, maybe he can just stand behind the two of you guys here. Thank you so much for coming in. Chris, I know you were a great friend of his. What can you tell us about him?
He lit up the room when he walked in. I even know just this first day he was down there in Mexico, he was already making friends down by the pool while they were down there. That's just who he was. Nobody was a stranger. I had the honor of knowing him for all my life. At the drop of a hat, he's there for you.
As you were for him, because I understand you were right down there at the scene helping out as soon as you got the call.
Chris didn't give an option. He didn't ask if he could come. He sent me a screenshot of his flight coming down.
Nobody should be in the position she was put in. Elijah deserves a full, fair investigation of what happened, a realistic one.
Well, he's got a great support system left behind, and you've got a great support system, and your dad and Chris and others that are going to really make a big difference going forward. This is going to get a lot of attention, and it may put a lot of pressure on him.
We really hope so. At this point, I feel like I have done more investigating than the police have done.
And that was the most frustrating thing being down there.
Yeah.
The theater next door, literally having shows the day they found him.
Yeah.
Nothing stopped. Nothing skipped a beat in Cancun.
In simple terms, it was a joke.
Let's keep the light on this and see what happens, why don't we?
Good.
Yeah, I've been in this profession for 45 plus years, and I don't know what life experience could ever prepare someone to go through what you've gone through. We know that losing a loved one is number one on the stress list. Losing a loved one suddenly is at the top in that subcategory. Losing a loved one violently, suddenly and violently, is at the absolute tip top of that list. You've been through that, and in a foreign country, and then had to go in and fight for the right to even see, identify, investigate. Jamie, how has this changed you? Jamie, how has this changed you?
I don't think I'll ever be the same. It's changed everything. I mean, I don't trust anyone now. I still haven't processed everything that I did in Mexico. It's not something that I would ever wish on my worst enemy.
What you've been through is not the cycle of life.
Right.
And just in the time that I've spent with you right now, I have not one doubt in my mind that you will continue to put one foot in front of the other because you have these two wonderful children to live for. You will never get over this. You will just get through it. And it won't necessarily get easier, you will just get better at it. You know, grief is when you have love in your heart and know where to go with it. And that's where you are with Elijah. He's not there to resonate with, except in your mind and your spirit. And you'll learn to do that too. That's why I asked if you talked to him while you were having to manipulate him. I was so proud to hear you say, yeah, I did.
Oh, I talk to him every day.
Yeah, and you have to, because he's still got to be part of your life and your children's lives.
They talk to him too.
And there's a point where some people say, a big part of my grief is going to be celebrating his life. We were married for 10 years and he died one day, and I choose to focus on the 10 years. And when it comes time for Christmas and birthdays and anniversaries, we're going to talk about it, we're going to celebrate, we're going to give our feelings a voice, because the memory at 5 and 6, those memories will decay with those girls unless you keep them alive. As cliche as it sounds, he would want you to laugh. He would want you to model joy for your girls. We're going to work on this, okay? I don't want this loss to be in vain, but if nothing positive comes out of it, what a tragedy that is.
Texas firefighter Elijah Snow was found dead.
My husband was found dead in a window.
The police say it was an accident, you say it was murder.
I had to pay $600.
They were charging you to see your dead husband's body.
The season premiere of Dr. Phil. Check your local listings.